goal is to bring you your next favorite band.
Thanks for having us. This is a very cool show.
Yeah, so through many iterations, and we finally landed on the weirdest one by far.
Yeah, simple feelings, and boom, you got a sound.
I remember this one time. I had been writing some songs, and I went out. I'm just going right in on this story. I went out, and so I was.
The story's longer than the song itself. We'll go ahead and play it.
And listen, it's going to be everybody's favorite band. Welcome to your next favorite band. That's both the show title and our promise to you. We here at Stereophilia Studio are tireless in our pursuit of finding incredible, genre-defiant artists who are either a hot, up-and-coming band or a group that has been delivering for years but have flown under the radar. Tonight, we have esteemed talent buyer and storyteller extraordinaire, and he has a lot of them, Jesse Lundy from Rising Sun Presents. Each month, we will bring you live streams, audio podcasts, and perhaps even a live concert where you can listen to the stories and hear the music of artists personally curated by us based on what we feel will be worthy of your time. Be sure to subscribe and tune in to each episode because the possibilities are endless and you never know who will be your next favorite band. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I am your host, Philip Reese.
Hello, and I'm your co-host, David Moore.
And you are listening to
your next favorite band.
And Jesse, I didn't get to fit it in there in the moment that we have there. Jesse Lundy also is an excellent guitar player, and we'll highlight some of that as well.
So, I mean, he's in a band, he books the bands, he paints bands. Like, I don't know, I'm running out of verbs of what he does.
Right, but bottom line, as far as guests go, this was one. Sometimes you don't know the persona. You don't know if it's going to be like a storyteller type interview. This one, I had all the confidence in the world was going to be amazing, and I just kind of sat back and enjoyed. And now today, we all get to sit back and enjoy.
So for the next 7 hours, we bring you.
Well, tonight is just part one of 7.
Omaha, Nebraska presents. Everyone sing the song.
There we go. But yeah, so David, how are you? We had real quick apologies to people. We're not gonna spend a ton of time on this, but last night we had some weather-related issues, so we had to kind of postpone a night. Wasn't fun, but that's over with, and here we are. Thank you all for bearing with us as we get this out there. But how are you otherwise?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic.
Good to hear.
I'm happy to be here and thrilled to be able to formally announce. We've been kind of mentioning this here and there, teasing it, whatnot. But we have our very, very special event coming up on Sunday, February 4th. It's going to be an in-person event. We have a trailer here we're going to play, and then we'll talk about it a little bit afterwards. But the preamble is, it's called Listen to the Dissonance, Songs and Conversations About Mental Health. And where it stemmed from was just hearing from so many musicians on the show talking about their struggles, how they worked through it, how they wrote songs about it, and then having seen shows where they share different, maybe same or different people share stories, and how much it resonated with audience members and how much it meant to them to hear about somebody else not feeling so alone, and maybe helping them move towards either asking for help or towards positivity or what have you. So it just seemed like the right thing to do was maybe to bring some of that together. So this is going to be a day dedicated to that. And so here's a little trailer to kind of help tell that story. Doing an event in February, a mixture of live performers and interviews and such that's dedicated to mental health.
Do you feel like hanging from a cross? Do you feel that your paradise is lost? When you're lying wide awake, counting every mistake, do you hate what you've become?
You are in a plane that is headed straight for the ground. this is the last possible chance that we have of putting on a parachute and getting the hell out of here. I hope that you turn this around, but I have to go.
Sure.
And my wife was right there as well.
You are completely falling apart in the inside, and everything else just seems completely normal around you, and it seems super, super fucked up that the sun is shining and the sky is blue, and like everything that you know is completely crumbling in the inside. I know what that's like, and it sucks.
Don't throw it all away. We've all made our mistakes.
He is the only person that said, "I'm sorry about that, but you're going to keep going."
Mm-hmm.
And I've told him that since, and he knows that it would possibly save my life. So, and I, by the way, this one, wow, this.
Music was very medicinal in my life and helped me get through some things.
I mean, because I still struggle with it, so I'm like,
Sure.
okay, I can play this song and remind myself that it's okay to feel these ways, you know?
Of course.
These are ways that I learned how to numb the pain.
The reality.
Yeah. And it did that. It worked while also setting my life on fire.
Yeah,
So-
Older, like the things that kind of qualify what is a good day, what's a good year, they're changing. And sometimes it's just as simple as, okay, my friends and my family are alive today. That's good enough for me. So
Probably the most important part is if anybody doesn't feel as alone because they hear other people going through and struggling and managing the same thing, then that's going to be, time well spent. So that's something we're going to be doing in February. And
Everybody needs a little bit of sunshine.
so February 4th, the Ice House here in Bethlehem. You can see there all the people who were quoted in there. Those are moments from our show, as you probably noticed. But Mike Maines and his wife Shannon Maines from Mike Maines and the Branches, Cuff Knotts and Christine Elise, Sean Barna, Carly Commando of Slingshot Dakota, Rachel Anna Dobkin, all going to be on there to share some of their, struggles, some of the stories, that it could be, more about what they shared there, or it could be all new things that they might be sharing. But also combining that with music that may have stemmed from, working through that. I don't want to use the word inspired by because it's just probably not the right word, but basically music written about the struggle, either full of hope or maybe full of darkness. But whatever it is, it's stuff that was, helpful for them to work through it. And again, probably will be something that is going to be a special day to kind of be a part of.
Yeah, and I think we're also going to get to hear, at least from some of them, stories about how they use music in their professional lives in some capacity for supporting others.
Sure.
As well. Not just, an inward facing or a vulnerable thing, but truly
absolutely.
actually also then reaching out to others to provide support. As we know, a couple of the guests will get a chance to speak with them, as the setup will be based around the idea that we'll be interviewing and then they'll be performing. And then at the end, there's going to be a very special performance of all of them together in a songwriters round. So it's going to be a special day. Tickets are available now.
Yeah. So this is different for us. It's not going to be live streamed. To respect the sanctity of that room, we don't want anybody to feel like their life is completely on display now for all of the world, basically. So it's going to be an event where it's at the Ice House. It seats 180, so there's plenty of seats. Don't worry about that. But we hope that you might consider coming for that day and being and experiencing it all together. Like David just said, there's going to be story and song, one from each artist. Then there'll be a little bit of a break, and then all 5 groups, 7 total performers, will hit the stage together and do like a songwriters round type, where they'll play another handful of songs each, to kind of really make it a day about music, but also about the topics of depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, substance abuse, grief. Any and all of that stuff, whatever is the person who is willing to share, they don't have to, but that's kind of what it'll be about. Hopefully removing some of the stigmas around some of those terminologies and diagnoses or what have you. And then also, no one has to share. People, the whole point is it's called Listen. So even if you just feel like that'll help you to come in and listen, that's what it's about.
Yeah, and it should be a very special event, and we're lucky we get to do this in a great space too. So that'll
Sure.
be part of it too. So that'll bring it all together.
Absolutely. The quotes from Carly Commando were from where she was about to play the song "Good Year." She was talking about sometimes what defines a good year changes. That particular song, she performed it right after those quotes. We have that. We're going to play that as after the credits. So that'll be the closing of this episode. So stick around for that. It is a wonderful and heartbreaking, heartwarming, depending on perspective. It's a beautiful
little both.
song.
I mean,
A little bit of both.
A little bittersweet.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
it's very bittersweet. So anyway, let's get to the guest for today, Jesse Lundy, formerly of Point Entertainment. That might be where a lot of people know him from.
Mhm.
It got folded into Rising Sun Presents, so still doing the same thing, just with a team now. And we get into all of that and all of the great stories he has to tell. Like we mentioned, he is a guitarist. So we have here a performance of his being part of a group of musicians. They're playing some Rolling Stones music. I was joking with David about this. Initially, I was like, oh, I can't use this one. And then I was like, no, we're definitely going to use this one. Here was why. The person making the recording is standing too close to the monitors on stage, so they're not getting almost any of the vocals, and they're only getting his guitar. And then I was like, wait, that's perfect. So
Yeah, that might also get us around a bit of a playing Rolling Stones copyright issue.
It could, but he rips guitar. It's super awesome. And so here's a little bit of some Rolling Stones that Jesse's playing. And you do get a lot of the crowd noise as well, but it's super fun. So here's this, and then David do some bio, and then we'll bring on the interview.
Jesse Lundy is the Senior Talent Acquisition Specialist at Rising Sun Presents. He got his start in the music business playing in bands and writing about rock for the campus newspaper while he was at the University of Maine. Jesse has worked as a concert promoter and publicist in Philadelphia since 1995, and he's worked at companies including Electric Factory Concerts and New Park Entertainment / Jock Usick Presents. He joined Point Entertainment in 2002 as a talent buyer and publicist at the award-winning listening room The Point in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. He has produced shows at Ardmore Music Hall in Ardmore, Pennsylvania, the Colonial Theater in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, and Philly's own Underground Arts in Milk Boy, as well as concert series and special events at venues, including the annual Philly Folk Festival.
Yeah, and there's lots of, again, great stories that he'll share about all of that. Let's hear a little bit more of Jesse shredding, and then we'll bring on the interview. Which is actually, we do the interview in the attic of Ardmore Music Hall, which was super cool, but the sun is going down and there's no lights up there, so part of the most important thing I had to do was make sure the brightness was okay. But here's some Jesse ripping guitar. And here's the interview with Jesse Lundy of Rising Sun Presents. We are now here with Jesse Lundy.
Hello, everyone.
And again, you're going to hear... So, first of all, we are in the attic of Ardmore Music Hall.
This is where nugs.net has their setup for streaming concerts and recording stuff from this attic. And apparently this room and these rooms is actually the original office space for the 23 East Cabaret,
okay,
which was here from 1979 to 94.
Yeah, I mean, they had like a banner on the wall, like they won the National League champions or something like that.
Yeah.
So we can fact check that.
There you go. There you go. This is the original office space.
Yeah.
This is my opportunity to catch up.
There you go.
You know?
And we're catching up on Jesse Lundy music.
Yes.
We played some of that right before the interview here. And so been a part. I mean, you're an accomplished guitarist. Been in many bands over the years.
It's the thing that makes me happy. You know, that's my pastime.
And you even have rehearsal tonight
So rehearsal tonight.
We had to coordinate to fit this in, so I super appreciate that.
That's totally fine. It leaves me an opportunity to have dinner before rehearsal, which it's all going to work out. But yeah, we were supposed to play the Dawson Street Pub Saturday, but because of the Phillies game, we moved it to January 12th. So get ready I'll be pulling double duty at the Dawson with Speeding Arrow, which is the current band that I'm in, though I'm not on any recordings yet.
Got it.
And Kevin Bentley, the other guitar player, has generally been my favorite other guitar player to play with because we're both like cut from the same cloth.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's really good.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, give us a quick. We're gonna go to the history of like back in college for you.
Sure.
For the Philly area, other bands you've been a part of.
Yeah, I played with, when I got out of college, I played in a band called Skirt, but we were cease and desisted on that because it was already a band called that, so we called ourselves the Fontanelles.
You got literally a letter in them.
Well, we were playing Fergie's one night, and we used to do fairly well there.
Sure.
And this is like probably 96 or 97.
Great spot, by the way, if you're in Philly, ever go to Fergie's.
You can never lose at Fergie's.
Not at all.
No TVs.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. It's like a legit Irish pub.
Yeah, exactly. But we went in to play, and there was a huge crowd, and we're like, hey, what's up? And everybody's like, we're here to see Skirt. And we're like, we're here. And they were like, you're not them. And it was a band from Atlanta who were on Shawnee Records. They're a real band with a real record label. So we were like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
So we changed our names to the Fontanelles, and then we got cease and desisted. We got a real letter from a band in Los Angeles, and we wrote to them and said, listen, we're a local band in Philly. You're a local band in L.A. If you ever come to the East Coast, we'll accept your cease and desist. And if we ever come to the West Coast, we'll send you one.
Right.
And at that point, the band just ended anyway.
Right.
And then I was in a band for a long time called the Preacher Curls.
Okay.
And that band, we recorded a lot, and we released a couple of records. And, local band, did pretty well as far as being a local band.
Right, yeah.
Buddies and whatnot. And then after that, I kind of started a series of my own bands because I did some sideman work and stuff like that, and I was like, I just want to play rock and roll.
Right.
I ended up hooking up Chris Bixler, who was the bass player in Preacher Curls. He and I were together for like 20 years until the pandemic. We played in pretty much every band. And a guy named Alec Meltzer, who is our drummer, who's in the York Street Hustle.
Wow.
He's in Joey Sweeney's band. Like, he's a great, great drummer. And the three of us played together for about 13 or 14 years with different front people as they moved on to whatever else they were moving on. The three of us stayed together, and we did so many projects together. It was so great. And post-pandemic, we just have not been able to get in the same room. It just hasn't made sense. But that's the thing that makes me happy.
Yeah.
That was the hardest part of the pandemic for me, at least at the beginning, was being like, I guess I don't get to play music anymore. And I didn't touch a guitar for like 6 months.
Wow.
Sold a bunch because I had a job. But,
Right.
But I'm really happy to have it back together now, and at least have projects to and as well as being apparently a real member of Speeding Arrow, which makes me very happy because they're a great band and great guys.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's good.
Yeah.
We'll go tonight. We'll rehearse some songs. So yeah, thanks for asking, man. And there's, I think I left out actually one thing, which is that Chris, Alec, and I backed up Hannah Taylor for, it must have been, I think it was about 5 years we played with her, which was probably my favorite band ever because it was just a really raucous, irreverent, rockabilly blues band and country band, and it was just it was really just such a great project. And when you're in a band with people and you're actually really friends and you're not just bandmates, it's a different thing. You know what I mean? So it was a heartbreaker. But Hannah is out there. She just was at Radio City Music Hall with Don McCloskey this weekend. Yeah, and she plays with Cosmic Guilt and the Flying V's, and I think Hannah's the best.
So I was so looking forward to this conversation just because, like, a couple of reasons. Like, one is the element of this talent buying, booking, so on and so forth. Fascinating to me. I can't wait to learn more about it, and I think other people will get, enjoyment out of learning more about that element of the industry. But also, who you book is so in my lane,
right?
That
so how do you know which ones I book?
Mostly either through you or it's just like I've seen. Well, first of all, it might even be after the fact,
right? Because you were at Eagle View,
correct?
And stuff like that.
Where I'm just like, man, Jesse just seems to always take. Or like I've said, hey, I'm going down to Philly. Do you want to meet at this show? And you're like, I booked that.
That's my show. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that's really cool about. I haven't for 20 years. It was me and Rich Martin as Point Entertainment.
Yeah.
So the team was E&I, you know. And now, as having folded Point Entertainment in with Rising Sun Presents to make one company, which we did post-pandemic, now I'm on a team. And I work with these tremendous people, like I mentioned Graham and Anna Reddy and Chris Perella. You know, I get to work with people who actually really get it, and there's collaboration, and talk about stuff, and everybody has their areas of expertise and stuff. So it's kind of fun. Although I have to say, sometimes people will credit me. They'll be like, "Oh, you booked that show, and you're so cool." And I'm like, "I'm not as cool as you think, because Graham booked that one." You know what I mean? But everybody deserves their credit.
Yes,
you know?
absolutely. And there's an element to that that is definitely something I would love to learn more about, because I find a lot of places book what they will confidently know will sell.
Sure.
And I find that to be most of the time boring, and a lot of tribute bands, which is just not my thing.
Yeah.
Like I there's very few I will go see.
No, I get that.
I find them to be very talented musicians.
Absolutely.
Playing music I have no interest in listening.
Right, or you've heard 10,000.
Correct.
Yeah.
And because I guess one thing is I love music discovery. So I'm the kind of person who...
Right, you are a discovery guy.
So I will go to a concert having no idea who they are.
Yep.
But I know that's not for everybody.
Well, there was a time for that. I mean, when I first got into the industry, I was working for Electric Factory concerts. It was my favorite thing. I would go to, I was out every night. My favorite was when you could bounce from the TLA to the Khyber to the Electric Factory to the to the Troc, and really just go to all the rooms to see all the shows. But I would often go specifically to see an opening act.
An opener, yes.
Yeah, because you're like, that's tomorrow.
Right.
You know,
that's the person you want to book 6 months from now.
Well, but I wasn't booking then. I was more. A lot of it, honestly, is gloating rights. Like we were having a conversation a couple of months ago about Big Thief.
Oh yeah,
you know, and everybody really loves that band. But I'm like, I saw them at Milk Boy, and everybody's like, they played Milk Boy, and I'm like, and I took it, or you know, any number of things, and we've had it, you know, so many times. You were at Eagle View. Billy Strings played there.
Sure.
The Avett Brothers were an opening act. Grace Potter opened for Rebirth Band. You know. And that's with that specific series. I always tell them, like, your gloating rights are 2 years down the road.
Right.
But you're going to have it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
but you have that innate sense, like you're finding it before it gets there.
It's partially,
and that's why I mean, like, it's not like you can give a formula for that, because it's just what your ears are telling you.
Yeah.
But that's, I guess, I try to do the same thing for the show. It doesn't need to be 2 years from down the road of being huge. More for me, it's just, you're going to like this band.
Yeah.
And if it's not quite your thing, next week's going to be your band. So,
Absolutely.
like, it's what I try to do too, but I'm taking zero financial risk. Like, there's got to be a nervousness because you need to pick somebody who is still going to sell enough that night, at least, broke even? I mean, like,
no, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the reality is that, you know, we all used to have Billboard magazine and Casey Kasem and things like that to be our gatekeepers to tell us what we're going to like, because that's
120 minutes was the big one for me.
Yeah, right. This is what's coming down the pike. This is what we're telling you is hip. And, you know, certainly now, I mean, we're blessed to have XPN in Philly.
Yeah,
but
we are.
We don't have, there are like no gatekeepers in Philadelphia. I mean, yes, John Batiste does a great job. He's really on the cusp of things. And, you know, Dan DeLuca at the Inquirer, Dan DeLuca, Denny Daroff, there's like 3 journalists left in Philadelphia, you know, and DeLuca does a great job covering emerging artists, but it's his job is really to feed the masses. It's the Inquirer, so he's covering bigger stuff a lot of times rather than being able to have the space and the column inches to break new things. So one of the things I learned really early on as a talent buyer was that a lot of times you're betting on the team involved with an artist as much as the artist.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, again, like an act that you're like, this is pretty cool. What do you think's going to happen? They're like, look at who the manager and agent and record company are. Like, there's no reason this won't happen.
Right. And that's it. So you're building a trust of somebody decided to work with them because they see something in it.
Yeah.
You think you hear something in it.
That's your first real gatekeeper if you're really paying. Yeah. If you know to drill down, like, people are always like, oh, geez, I don't know how to get in touch with this band. I'm like, the first thing I look at when somebody sends me a new band is the contact page.
Yeah.
Who's on the contact page? That's what I want to know.
Yep.
Then I'll listen to the music, It really matters.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It really does. And that's not to say that we don't take a lot of risks on things that we feel passionate about. Graham and I both really connected with a woman named Eliza Edens, who put out a record. Her agent, Chris West, is a sweet guy, but he's a small agent. I mean, he's not a powerhouse running around saying, you got to do this. But we listened to the record and we were like, this is unbelievable.
Right.
So she played Milk Boy for us. And then when we needed to find a support act to go on Langhorne Slim at Concerts Under the Stars, we were like, you know what? This is perfect for her. This audience is going to love her. And it's not often that you get to curate in quite that way. So it's exciting when you do and get to throw a bone to somebody that you believe in just because they're good.
Right. That is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it doesn't happen enough. It's a shame. But there's a lot of good acts out there,
Yeah, and part of the reason why I was also looking forward to this conversation was I'm trying to do singular events myself. Of course, I have.
You're not going to compete with us, are you? Because I'm not going to tell you anything.
No, I want to do one day of like two people on a bill.
Yeah.
But I want it to be curated where it makes sense.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is a matter of learning. I think you have to really learn the industry. I mean, again, there are a lot of bands that seem to fall from the sky popular.
Sure.
Like the minute they come out, everybody's like, yeah, I really like them. I'm like, I've never heard of them. Not to say that it's necessarily something I would have heard of, but I'm like, how did you find out about these bands? Another great tip, Rich and I taught at Drexel for 13 years. So we had a lot of our students went on to become pretty important people in the industry, which is the best.
Right.
And Marshall Betts, who represents a lot of killer acts, I called him one day and said, how come I've never heard of this band and they're already too big for our room?
Right.
What goes on? And this is a great tip for all musicians, which is that, you're not supposed to hire a manager. A manager's supposed to want to manage you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you can have a project manager, but a real manager's supposed to feel a little passionate about it.
Right.
You can't hire an agent. You're not supposed to. If you do, skeptical.
Right.
And you can't hire a record company. You know? But you can hire a publicist.
Right.
And if you're a band with a couple of bucks in your pocket, a publicist's job is to talk to everybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's really, if you get the right one, and that's what Marshall told me. He said, I trust publicists that tell me that they've got a band that's worth looking at and seems to have the gumption to make it work. So that's a great 101 for all you professionals out there, young professionals.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Hire a publicist.
Yeah. That's very, very good advice. All right, well, why don't we take a moment to go back, and then we can come back forward and keep chatting about this specifically. So you grow up in Maine?
So my parents immediately were divorced. My mother and I ended up in Maine with my stepdad, and my father was here. And I would visit here for holidays and summers and whatnot. But when I was in 7th grade, my dad said, why don't you come down here and live with me for high school, 8th grade through high school. It'll be good for us. And I said, great, you know what, I'm going to try that. I didn't really know what I was going to end up doing in Maine. So I was like, this is a good opportunity.
Right.
And so I went to high school here. I graduated from Lower Merion.
Oh, neat.
And then I went back to Maine to go to university.
For college,
For college. Yep.
And you go there as a journalism major.
Correct.
But musician and booking kind of starts for there.
Yeah, so I didn't start playing guitar till my senior year of high school. So when I got to college, I was not great. but there was a bunch of us that weren't great, and we all learned a lot together and started a band by our second year. And we had to learn how to, I was writing music for the school paper. I was doing a little bit of work at the radio station. I was trying to, I was like, this is exciting, you know? And
booking for the Ram's Horn?
Well, yeah. So what happened was the Ram's Horn was where we would rehearse, and they said, well, you got to learn how to turn on the PA to do that. And then they were like, why don't you learn how to do sound? So I learned a little bit about sound, and I would mix a few shows. And I actually think I did a pretty good job, considering I really, really didn't hardly even have a 101.
Sure.
Like, I'm like, it sounded pretty good. I felt like I did a good job.
Right.
And they had decent gear. But by my last term, and I graduated, I did 4.5 years, because why not? And they were like, why don't you book it for your last, semester, or 2 semesters, I guess.
Got it. And it wasn't a small place. It was like
about 150
cap.
Yeah. And, over the years, a lot, I won't take credit for it, but like Ani played there. And then after, I booked an act called Amanda Stark and Chandler, who were these really awesome, far out punk rock folk poet people. Like, really, they were so far out. And after I left, they turned the Ram's Horn on to Dan Byrne, who ended up playing there. And when I got out of college, I ended up eventually we were doing a show with Dan Byrne. And I was like, oh, and Amanda was his manager, and it's like a whole thing. Like, it's a whole world of punk rock folk people, which is super cool. So anyway, when I got out of school and came back here, I was like, geez, I should be a sound guy, I guess. Like, journalism, no way am I indicting press and the mainstream media and all that, but I had some ethical problems both at my school paper and at my internship, which I felt, if you're going to have a code of ethics and write it down, why don't you follow it?
Why don't you follow the code?
What I mean? Yeah,
or don't write anything.
Or don't write anything down, right? Which leads to... because it ties so beautifully. My first summer at Electric Factory concerts, I was we're at the Mann Center, and the A&M Records rep said to me, why would you want to work in a sleazy business like this? And I said just that to him. I said, journalism has a code of ethics. I ran into a couple of issues that I didn't agree with and felt that it wasn't the right thing for me. And the music industry doesn't have a code of ethics. So, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Every time you get fucked in this business, you had it coming. You know what I mean? There's almost nothing you can say about it. Like, that's the game, It's much different. It's much friendlier now. Post-pandemic, the world is very different in the music industry, but certainly beforehand it was horrible. But anyway, I got out of college, and my uncle is very, very good friends with Larry Magid, who, of course, is the guy that invented the concert industry in Philadelphia.
Sure.
And Larry gave me the opportunity to choose between being his personal assistant or working in the marketing department. And the first big mistake I made in my career was saying, well, I was a journalism major, I guess I should work in the marketing department instead of going what could have been an executive track. I'm like, I'll just blow it right now, But it was great, and I learned a lot in 2.5 years there, and I worked with some really great people, and it was a very, very difficult environment to work in because there was a lot of ego, not pointing fingers at anyone in particular, but there was a lot of ego, and there was no HR department, and so I had the opportunity to leave when several of the principals of the company left and started a competitor, and that was called New Park Entertainment, and that was an incredible experience because day one they were like, you're not an underling anymore. Now you're one of us, you're a marketing guy, and you're a talent buyer. And I'm like, I don't really know anything about booking shows, really, And the Khyber made itself available to us, as did the Troc, which was basically the non-Electric Factory concerts route in Philadelphia at that time.
Got it.
Was
it contentious, or was it just
contentious?
Yeah, okay.
It was legally contentious, not against me, but it was in the courts for a long time, and. But yeah, the first show I booked was Project Object, the Frank Zappa tribute band, which sold out at the Khyber on a high ticket. And I was like, wow, okay.
Right.
Yeah, and I learned a lot about doing shows, but I learned a lot about the singer-songwriter world. My boss there, Bill Rogers, who is still around, BRE Entertainment, Bill taught me a lot about, and Larry, they all did. All these guys, Larry Ahern and Bob Koch and Sid Payne, they were legends. These guys had done everything, So they taught me a lot about that side of things, which when the Point opened, when Rich opened the Point in 1998, Sid Payne said to me, "You should call Rich and you should do shows with him. He's a great guy and it's a good room." And I said, "Okay." And I went out there and, we started hitting it out of the park pretty quick. Sure. It was like 120 seats. It wasn't a big room, but and in the fall of 2001, after 9/11, when we were all like, "What am I doing?" My opportunities on the table were to go work with Rich or to be Derek Truck's band tour manager, because we got along really well with those guys. And I was like, I kind of don't really want to go on the road, which ultimately I think I'm pretty happy a decision I made, but it also may have been the other big mistake that I made in my career choices, not wanting to step up to that level quite so quickly, But we had a great time at the Point. And
the Point was huge.
It was huge. Yeah, it was us and the Tin Angel were the only listening rooms in town, and we were competitors, but we were friends. You know what I mean?
Not as contentious as the other
Not nearly. No, it was great. And I mean, those guys, Larry Goldfarb is still somebody that I talk to regularly because he's, he was the man. He did a lot.
Right.
But we sold, when we did the statistics after we closed, we sold 83% of the tickets that we put on sale between 1998 and 2005 at the Point, which is a pretty Hall of Fame level. Esquire magazine had named us one of the top 10 venues in the country. But it was still a 120-seat coffee house without a liquor license. You know what I mean? So nobody was getting rich, but it was a good gig, you know? And it opened up opportunities. I will give credit to David Broida, who some of your listeners may know, as he's the guy who started Concerts Under the Stars in Upper Merion.
Sure.
And he's the guy who started the Bryn Mawr Twilight series, both of which are now Rising Sun projects.
Got it. Rising Sun being the company you are now.
That's where
Just
I'm
want
at
to make
now.
sure everybody...
Yep. Broida also called me once and said, "Hey, these people out in Exton want to do a concert series. I don't have the bandwidth, you do it." And that's Eagle View, which was, we started in 2001. So I've gotten a good 23 years out of that so far, which is, and that's my favorite project because everybody leaves me alone and I get to really actually curate it the way I want.
And I think that's the one where I was the most in sync with what you were booking, because I went down there to go see Sonny War. Who
and you saw B. Taylor.
Was an opener.
So Sonny wasn't, let me just tell you this is for clarity because I don't want anybody watching this and saying, she wasn't the opener. Sonny War was technically the headliner, but I said to Sonny's agent, I said, look, it's a co-bill to begin with. But I don't think that Sonny should follow B. Taylor. I think B. Taylor is going to be a lot more energy, and I wouldn't want to have to I wouldn't want it to not work.
Unless she was going on at 11 at night.
You need a palate cleanser after that, you know. And that's a bit, B. Taylor is exactly the kind of act that, to me, B. Taylor is not worth more than, this isn't a market for her yet because she hasn't really done anything up in the Northeast yet. But I was like, I was turned on to her a couple of years ago by the guy who is now Billy String's agent, my buddy Pat May, and he was like, she's really good, what do you think? And I said, you should sign her. And then Billy blew up and he couldn't do it. And my friend Ryan Sloan picked her up and I said, I will do anything for this act. Anything you want. You want me to call the radio station and tell them they should play the record? Not that means they're going to do it, but suggest they play the record.
Recruit energy towards it.
Totally. Because she is an A-level act who will pop. That will happen.
For sure.
For sure.
And then I looked at the rest of the schedule and it had, Kufnatz and Christine Elise. It had Dylan Zangwill. More than that, I just can't seem to remember off the top of my head right now. But there were plenty of others where I was like, if I lived closer, I'd be going every time.
There are people, I think I'm right about this, but the woman who is the marketing person at the Hankin Group, who is the company that funds that series, they own Eagle View. When she was a kid, she used to go to the shows, and it's really been far out at that series from when we started, when these people didn't even have kids yet, to now, 20 some odd years later, some of the kids are bringing their kids. You know what I mean? It's bananas, and it makes me feel young.
Vibrant and vivacious.
Exactly.
That's amazing. So let's take a moment to pause here and talk about more the logistics of booking talent buyer, because even that's a phrase I don't yet fully understand. I think I do, but I'd rather hear it from you.
Okay.
So if I were to lay out, like you kind of mentioned, so a musician might get a publicist, so on and so forth, but they can get a booking agent who's going to help them.
It's the hardest part to get.
Right.
It's easier to get a record deal than it is to get an agent.
Right.
You know, a reputable agent, you know. And the reason is that, you know, even the agents only have so much bandwidth, you know, to pick up acts. And if one of them gets really big, then their time is consumed. But
and that must be such a tough call, because it's like you probably take a drop in revenue and an increase in
hassle.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I mean, you know, our job as talent buyers is, it's not, there are some people who feel like they have to fly around the world and see bands in order to pick the right ones. And I'm like, who's paying for that?
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we rely on reputable agents, people who either clearly have good taste or have been around for a long time and a proven track record, to come to us and say, you should book, please, you know, hey, book this band. You know, okay, great, we're going to do it. You know, I mean, local bands, it's different. Local bands, you can quantify what a local band means in a market, because they're playing every week and a half anyway, so you can just go see them, you know. And, you know, certainly at places like The Point, I got to know generations of acts. You know, it was great. It's a little harder now because I don't really go out as much as I used to, you know what I mean? And so I don't see as many bands. But that's the thing, is I work with people who are still going out all the time, and it's awesome because they really get it. You know what I mean? And Kevin McCall, who works in the box office, books Grape Street, you know, or the Grape Room. So he knows. I mean, he's seeing these bands. He can make great recommendations. And you know. Yeah.
So the booking. So I guess here's another one. So the booking agent's going to reach out to venues that they think would be a good spot for their band that they're representing, and in some cases they can call up, to use an example, like Helen Smith at City Winery, who books only for City Winery, or someone like yourself who books for multiple different venues. And is that what it is? You're more of like a, to use a phrase, freelancer.
Yes and no. I mean,
this is I don't fully get it.
No, that's fair. I mean, you know, Helen's job now is, she's got to book upstairs and downstairs. That's the job. You know what I mean? They do, occasionally they'll do stuff at the Annenberg. And I think that occasionally they even have done stuff at the Newtown Theater, where we're also involved.
Oh, okay.
Because they're open rooms.
You
know what I mean? So somebody calls you up and says, hey, the Beatles are getting back together. You know, you're going to find a room for it. And
even more impressive now than ever before if they get back together.
I think it's going to happen. This is the year. But Helen's obligations are to that room. You know, the same way that, you know, the team at Johnny Brenda's, their job is to keep that room occupied, you know. Now we have Milk Boy, we have 118, we have Ardmore, and to some degree we have Underground Arts to think about. But the reality is that sometimes there are acts that maybe they either don't want to do those rooms, or they you know, it's our relationship, you know, and I can go to, like when Helen was at City Winery and Christiana before her, and now Sean, who's the new guy, you know, we have an agreement, you know what I mean? And they're also obligated to keep both rooms filled. So I can call Sean and say, hey, do you want to work on this together? You know what I mean? And it becomes a co-promotion, which is great. Like that kind of collaborative effort didn't really happen a lot certainly in the 90s and 2000s. It was very territorial in Philadelphia. Very territorial.
And is that different than other cities?
Well, you know, it's funny because it depends on who you ask. It depends on what city. I used to certainly believe that Philadelphia was the most competitive market in the country, but I'm here dealing with it.
Right.
You know,
a little biased.
Yeah, a little biased. People will say it's Denver. People will say it's San Francisco. You know, but there are, I think, only certain markets where it really turns into a cutthroat thing. Now, it's not as cutthroat now. Again, post-pandemic, everybody's really lightened up. It's not quite... I mean, it literally, you would get into screaming matches with people over an act that wasn't really going to sell any tickets. And part of that's ego, too.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I can see that being a bigger factor.
It's a huge factor, yeah. And you know, I mean, we all have an ego. There's nothing you can do about it. You know what I mean? But you got to try to pull that in, rein it in a little bit, because I mean, I know that I have done and said stupid things because of my ego over the years. I said I got to put that to rest and try not to be that guy. You know what I mean? But anyway, yeah. So freelancer, no. But we as this company's Rising Sun has evolved, and we've kind of started to figure out what we're going to do, who's really responsible for this, that, and the other thing. It gave me a lot of freedom knowing that, I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm just blowing smoke, but like Graham and Anna have a capacity to do this job that I would never, I don't know how they do it. I'm like, what do you people do? Stay up all night?
Right.
Like, I don't get it. And so they're keeping the rooms filled, so it does allow me, and to some degree Rich, to go and do things like the Newtown Theater. Newtown Theater said, hey, we want to do tribute bands. Can you help us? And we're like, yeah, it's not a problem. As long as we don't have to do the marketing and actually make the show happen that night, we can book shows for you.
Yeah,
you know? And that has led to, in the last year, us picking up Daryl's house in Pawling, New York, which is the room that Daryl Hall was involved in opening, which is a big project. It's Wednesday to Sunday pretty much every week, you know. But they do a lot of tribute bands, and it is. I mean, I have 4 The Cars bands battling at this moment to say who's the best Cars band. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's not as hard to fill all the dates.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's a very different kind of room than we've worked in the past, but it's a great team there, and they get it, and they're working with us, and that's awesome. I also picked up a room as you know, I'm from Maine. I picked up the Waldo Theater in Waldoboro, Maine, which is 20 minutes from where my parents live. And I get to work with people there who are just unbelievable. Like, everybody's like, Maine, do they have electricity there? And I'm like, not only do they have electricity, but they totally get it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so we've done, you know, maybe 15 shows there this year, but most of them sold out. And I got Henry Rollins to go up there.
That's
you know
amazing.
what I mean? So it's like, if people are willing to go, I am more than happy to make shows happen.
Yeah.
It's very exciting.
That is very exciting.
And we just picked up One Longfellow Square in Portland, Maine, which is a 170-seat nonprofit, more of a folk club, folk and world music. So I will be revisiting an era of my career that I haven't dealt with in a long time.
Right.
But my point, I guess, is just that what we talked about as a group here was, I'm like, look, these projects keep presenting themselves. I don't necessarily need to tax the company and everybody else's efforts to do this. So if I don't worry quite so much about 118 and Milk Boy, I can do these other things.
Personally, you mean?
Right.
Let the rest of the team book them.
Yeah, I mean, Graham is a fully formed buyer at this point, and Anna has been learning and learning and learning. I consider these people to be my peers, if not. I answer to Graham. I mean, Graham approves my offers. He's smarter than me. You know what I mean?
So, let me ask this.
Yeah.
So, since the title says talent buyer,
sure.
What are you buying?
Sure. So the transactional relationship that you're referring to is that these agencies are going out and they're whatever process they go through to pick a band, okay, and they're going to sit with the manager, they're going to sit with the label, the marketing people, the publicist, and figure out what the plan is for this artist. And are we going to get interest at radio? Is XPN going to play it? Is there a thing? And then they're going to come to us, and this is where Rising Sun is in a great spot right now, because really Milk Boy is the only kind of 200 cap legit rock club in Philly, which is not to suggest that any of the others are not legit, but it used to be us in Boot and Saddle, you know, and to some degree upstairs at World Cafe Live, I guess, too. And so, but right now, these bands, these agencies, and there's a lot of them, are pumping out artists all the time. They constantly have stuff touring. So again, you know, Name That Act is going to come to Philadelphia for the first time, and they're going to say, well, you know, we don't really know what's going to happen yet, but we want you to make us an offer for this date range.
Right.
So then they're putting together a timeline, a date line for this band as to what that tour is going to look like, how much money they can get at each stop, to see if it's feasible to fit the budget of what the tour wants to be. You know, so we're constantly sending out offers A lot of which don't happen.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because maybe they go to a different room, or maybe they skip Philly or whatever.
Right. It wasn't worth their stop,
or they just say, you know what, we don't feel like they don't want to come to Philly because they know that maybe XPN has said, yes, we are going to play the record, but not until February, so don't come in November. You know what I mean? We'll get this one down the line a little bit. So, at any rate, what we're doing is we are presenting them with, okay, it's a 200 cap room, and this is the ticket price, and this is the way that the math is going to go. This is how the money's going to get split up, whatever comes through the door,
right?
You know, and who's going to be the opener and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then our production teams at all the rooms, well, then our marketing teams will take it and they'll do, you know, they'll get it into the world the way that they do, which mercifully is not my job anymore. And then our production team will deal with the stuff on the day of the show. You know, so it's amazing. I mean, this is, you know, again, before the pandemic, before this company formed, when it was just Rich and I, so we were responsible for everything that we did, I was going to 250 shows a year.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. And I got to be honest with you, you do that for 25 years and tell me how psyched you are to go to a show. You know, it really, my cup runneth over entirely too much, you know. But anyway, so that is the thing. I mean, we're gonna send them the offer. We'll tweak it however it needs tweaking. They accept it. The contracts come in, the marketing materials, the production stuff, and then it just goes from there. You know, and this company is doing an enormous volume of shows at this point. You know, especially when you count in the 5 or 6 summer concert series and all the stuff out of state. It's mind-boggling already. You know,
and should be worth mentioning too that there are like incidentals, you might call them, where it's like, you know, you offered this much money to book them, and they'll say, yeah, that's fine, but you have to give us hotel rooms and airfare or whatever.
Larry Goldfarb at the Tin Angel taught me the best answer to that. We're building the hotel next year, but for now you got to take care of your own hotel. You know what I mean? Because for some reason there's a perception that hotel rooms are free. You know what I mean? And I'm telling you right now, they're not.
They are not.
Yeah. Otherwise I would not have stayed in Scott Sachs and Susie Brown's basement in Nashville last week. I would have got my own free hotel room somewhere. Incidentals. You know, again, most of our rooms have decent backlines, so if they need a drum kit and bass amp, we've got that.
Right.
You know, it's really a lot of times with that kind of stuff. It's really when we get up into the level of like the Colonial Theater in Phoenixville, where we've been working for 20 years. Where we do have to bring in backline, and there's great backline companies around.
Oh, yeah.
You know? So it's real easy to get people what they want. But, you know, all you need is one person to say, and a grand piano. And you're like, well, grand piano is $2,000. Like, it's not, those aren't free either.
It's not one grand piano, it's two.
Yeah. And there used to be a time when these piano companies would come in, they'd be like, where are your piano movers? And I'm like, you're the piano mover. That's your job. Why would you think I have 8 people here to move a piano, you know? But, so it is definitely transactional, but there are sometimes when you find people that you work with, and I'm going to use the Avett Brothers as the prime example. You know, in 2004, the guy Paul Lohr, who represents the Avett Brothers for their entire careers, was like, hey, I called him about another act. He goes, I'll give you that act for the point, but I want you to book the Avett Brothers. And we're like, fine, whoever they are. So we brought him in for 2 nights to open for Olabelle, which was Amy Helm's old band. And Amy and the band were like, you can't book openers this good. You know what I mean? Because they really it was just unbelievable, you know? And since that time, the Avett Brothers have let us work with them. Maybe it's somebody like Live Nation's, you know, it's their room, but we get a taste. We get to go in and be part of it. And that doesn't happen very often. That kind of loyalty does not happen. Tommy Emmanuel is another one. Al Stewart is another one. Al Stewart has been so good to us over the years, you know. So it's a lot of times I used to say we're doing the hard work so that Live Nation can book them into the Fillmore and go, look, we sold out the Fillmore and we don't have to pay them. You know what I mean? Which is fine. I mean, that's how it goes. They built the Fillmore.
Which is a great space.
Yeah, sure. It's a fine room, you know, and we don't have one, you know, we can go into the Franklin, you know what I mean, which is a fantastic room too. But, you know, there's people want to do what they want to do.
Right.
The loyalty's hard to come by.
Sure, yeah. What about the concept of the overall experience? And what I mean by that is, what if it's, hey, I have this you know, they played this 150 cap room last time round. They're bigger now.
Yeah.
And now, not quite the Fillmore, but let's say they're going to go to 500.
Sure.
But you're able to also say, maybe we put them back in that 150 and charge 3 times the ticket price. Are people willing to pay?
It depends on what act it is.
Right.
You know, and I'll give you, there is a tipping point. And I go through this at Daryl's house, which is a 200 cap room with 120 standing and then 80 seats right up front. And the seats are more expensive.
Sure.
And what they really want us to do is to get the underplays. We don't have a lot of competition up there, so it's not impossible.
Right.
It's just there's.
And I guess you might even need something that's a little bit of a gimmick's not the right word, but like something that like someone who's
a hook.
That it's an all acoustic set.
Sure.
Or they're going to play some album from beginning to end that they haven't played the music from in forever.
Yeah, that's definitely a good hook.
Yeah.
But you really hit a tipping point. Like just as a for instance, you know, it's like okay. You know, we can make this show work, but tickets are going to be $130.
Right.
Like, is that fan base really going to pay $130, or are we just asking kids to go to their parents and tap them for more money to go see a show? Like, it doesn't. There's a tipping
I could
point.
hear you.
Yeah. However, I'll say that when the point was open and Dylan did the thing where he came in and he played, I think he played the Troc and the Tower, maybe, and somewhere else. He did 3 shows like the Stones did when they did it, and we were like, you know what? We called the agent and said, this is crazy, but how much do you want for Bob? You know, and this was in the early 2000s. They said, well, they won't even, it's more now. They won't even discuss it for less than $50,000. So we said, you know what? If we did 100 seats at $600 a ticket for Bob Dylan, we would sell that out.
Yeah.
Like in a heartbeat.
Right.
You know, Ween did it at the point.
Sure.
Ween called us and said, we just want to do this special. We just want it to be a $25 ticket, you know, like for the fans. And it sold out in like 4 seconds.
Of course.
You know what I mean? It was absurd.
Right.
But a lot of times it really has to be on them. They have to want to do that.
Right. And even take some of the risk of we might not sell the tickets.
Well, I think that
in the case of Daryl's house where it's like
right.
price and distance.
Yeah, you really have
something
to be right.
in Philly, you're probably going to still get it, or in any major city. I mean, where somebody has the wealth and the interest.
There's enough people with the money.
Correct.
Yeah, Pauling is a surprisingly wealthy community, but still, you know what I mean? You still have to
You still need 100 and some people
it.
who all said yes.
You got to do the math right. But anyway, it would be more exciting, of course, if people did that more often.
Right.
But they don't.
But yeah, I'm with you. Like, if you did play even just 3 or 4 shows in one city, like you're saying, you could make one of those 4 the unique small room experience.
Totally.
And just charge that same ticket price.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That'd be very cool.
It's a bit nice when people do it, but it doesn't happen.
People need to be on the vision of what it's about, not just if you just talk about numbers, it probably sounds like a bad idea. But if you say, hey, wait, like I'm always thinking of Godfrey Daniels. Some of that is spanning from it's like the history of the room, the acoustics in there, the intimate setting.
Yeah.
That combination of, hey, we could probably, if you got the right person in there who's willing to perform for 75 people, charge $100 a person or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And you're pulling potentially from Philly and from New York because it's, you know, an hour and a half. Could be neat.
I would love to see it happen more, and you know, it's a bit of a pipe dream.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a... Because, you know, look, I mean, the reality is that, you know, as the music industry has grown over the years, and whether you know this or not, I mean, when Bill Graham was booking the Fillmores originally, the acts got a flat fee. You know what I mean? And Bill kept the rest. And in fact, one of my favorite stories was he brought a journalist to his house overlooking the San Francisco Bay on top of a hill. He says, wow, you know, how'd you get money to do, you know, to build a place this nice? He goes, flat fees at the Fillmore. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's how you make money.
Right.
It used to really be the Wild West, but it was, I believe, Zeppelin, Peter Grant, when they did, I think it was the tour in '73, he came back and he said, let me ask you something to the promoters. How many people are coming to see you? And they're like, probably no one. He goes, right. So I'm taking 90% of everything after the cost of doing the show because nobody's coming to see you.
Right.
We don't need you.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know that there are tours. I mean, I remember when the Stones toured in '99. You know, it was someone had bought the tour, right? Michael Cole had bought the tour, so the Stones were paid, and he had to now recoup his money.
Wow.
And he would come around and he would say to promoters, you're going to get a flat fee to produce the show. Doesn't matter if we sell $1 trillion worth of tickets, you get X. And it was like, it really was not enough money to make it worth doing. But do you want to do Stone shows? You know what I mean? Like, that looks good, you know?
That is true, yeah. That's part of the decision tree.
Yeah. And, you know, luckily now, certainly at a level like this, club level, you know, the agents understand for the most part that they can't pull that stuff because the club won't be here. You know what I mean? The clubs have to exist. And everybody thinks that, you know, owning a club or running a club is just a money printing machine. And I want you to know it's not.
No.
You know what I mean? It would be great if we didn't have to pay the staff.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Or if we didn't have to pay insurance or ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC or taxes or anything. It would be great. You'd be making a ton of money, you know? But the idea that the club owner is driving around in a Cadillac is not realistic.
No.
You know what I mean? It's just not, you know? And that's a perception that I have I never owned a club, but that's a perception that I've dealt with for a long time. People are like, wow, you must be a millionaire. You know, you ever in The Simpsons? Remember The Simpsons where they catch Skinner, the kids tie Skinner up, and they're going through the files, and they're like, he makes $40,000 a year. And how old is he? And they're like, he's a millionaire. And he's like, I wasn't a principal when I was 1. You know what I mean? It's the same thing, I promise.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, okay.
Yeah.
On to the next thing.
I guess I wanted to know, with the gut feel you have on certain performers.
Yeah.
And you've shared a bunch of the ones that did make it. Who was somebody that you thought was going to and just didn't?
Right. That's a good one. I'm going to have to think on that. I certainly picked some losers over the years. And, I mean, I'll just say this. When, you know, we booked Philly Folk Fest from 08 to 17.
That was another one. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And I was wrong. I picked a few acts. I overpaid. I'm not going to name the act.
Sure.
But I overpaid an act on a bet that I was right, and I was not right. And I paid them way too much money.
Sure.
You know, well, yeah, it was way too much money, given the budget there. So it absolutely happens.
Sure.
I mean,
well, let's even stick with Philly Folk Fest because in reality it was very much the opposite. When you were booking it, it was doing very well.
It was doing very well.
And then you no longer became the booking agent, and now
fell off of cliff,
and no longer exists anymore. So,
right. Well, it may exist.
I guess
they're going to do it.
It's on a sabbatical.
No. They've saved the date. Yeah, so I'm wishing them all the best.
But I guess more to the point of there's a reason why they didn't have a show this past year. So any story there as far as like how you got the opportunity and then the process and then how you didn't have the opportunity anymore?
And I'm going to be very diplomatic and choose my words very carefully.
Yep. We can always edit too.
No, I've got this story down, I think, at this point. You know, we had a relationship with the people involved at the festival because of the point, and because we were booking so many acts. They looked to us for, hey, did this band do well? Because we're thinking about inviting them this year and stuff. And I had been up there twice before. One time I went up to hang out with Great Big Sea, who were a band that I was pretty close with as people, and who were at that point playing on the camp stage. They headlined the first year we did it. They got to be so big. But and I played it one year. I think I played it in the summer of 2005, and I don't even remember if I spent the night. I don't think I did. But we pitched them. I was on a panel at the Northeast Regional Folk Alliance, and one of my really good friends in the industry, a guy named John Sanders, who works for Dance Malls Presents up in upstate New York, who is the guy that basically gave us the Daryl's House job when they moved to another gig. John was talking about how, in his opinion, folk music was changing and morphing, but that the folk world was not catching on, and he was talking about Bonnie Prince Billy, he was talking about Devendra Bernhard, you know, people like that, who were the freak folk people and that weren't, and I was like, man, he's so right about that. And this was the dawn of social media, so we did a presentation for the board of the society, I guess, and the buyers there, Fred Kaiser and people like that, saying, look, I mean, you know, you love the Be Good Tanyas, Littlest Birds is a great song, XPN's playing it, they're doing good business and stuff. I said, but have you heard of Jody Holland? And they're like, no. And so what I presented for them was Jody Holland was originally a member of the Be Good Tanyas. She wrote that song. In fact, she wrote most of that album with them. But she is considered indie rock. Why? Because she has a nose ring and food coloring in her hair. That's the only difference.
Right.
You know what I mean? She's embraced by the indie rock crowd.
Sure.
They're embraced by the folk crowd. And then I pulled up MySpace and was like, look at the difference in the numbers between them.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then pulled off some classic folk acts and said, look at, social media is a thing now. Look at the numbers here, look at the numbers there, and you see the difference between these things. So, and that and the fact that we agreed to book the festival for a very, very small fee. Why? Because we cared, and because our agreement was that, we're going to say to these acts, come play for us.
Right.
You know what I mean? When you come back around the next time, come play for us.
Sure.
And our agreement with the society was that, if those acts came back around, we would offer them some tickets for the membership, and we'd be happy to put their logo on it and stuff like that. We had a great run there. It was a very challenging event to work because of the way that, in our case, I think it was the 47th may have been our first one. For 47 years, it had been operating the way it operated.
Right.
And volunteer run, is a different model than we were used to. And, and look, there were different people with different ideas, whatever you want to say. You know what I mean? We overcame all that. We did things the way that we needed them to be done with a new level of artists, And that's not to suggest that they hadn't crushed it in the years prior, but right up there, they had lost focus on how folk world was going to progress and still sell tickets. Always going to be good acts, you know what I mean? And so we had a great run, and I'm going to very carefully choose my words and say that that there were people there who were more driven by maybe their own egos and ambition than the smarts that they had to back those things up. And after we were just a contracted vendor. We didn't own it. We weren't part. They opted not to renew our contract after the 2017 festival and take it in-house again. Right. And
so how many years did you do it then?
10 festivals.
10, okay.
Yeah. So
it wasn't like it was one or two.
No, it was 10.
You had a track record of success.
I think we did pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, there were years...
Other than the one you happen to use as an example of being paid too much.
Oh, well, that was just one act. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was, and honestly, the way that I see it was that, again, I don't know the inner workings. I don't know if someone had audio recordings of people saying, I'm going to shoot the president or something like that. But people were unwilling to listen to reality, were unwilling to question authority, which to me is one of the tenets of folk music. But hey, what do I know? And consequently, they were left with nothing. Right. And I'm not in any way suggesting anybody stole or anything that. The evidence has yet to be presented as to what really happened, other than after the tides turned and the board was able to say publicly that they were left with $700 in the bank and $300,000 in debt, and many of their assets had been sold off to cover debt. And the reality is that you can't go into something like that and think that you're going to be the person who turns it around just because you love music. Right. You better know what you're doing. Of course. You know what I mean? Because the reality is that agents smell blood in the water. Right. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that agents are evil people. Right. But if I came to you and you didn't know any better and said, look, dude, I'll get you Arcadian Wild for 10 grand, you might be like, great. You know what I mean? Right. Doesn't mean that's what they're worth. Right. You know what I mean? There's a process of negotiating and having enough understanding of how the world actually works to do the job. Yeah. And unfortunately, trust was put into people who did not know that and pretended that they knew it, and still apparently continue to pretend that they know it. Wow. So look, I mean, it's a shame, and I think that the people who are in place now there's a lot of really good people there, the people that I know, and I wish them a lot of luck. Sure. And I hope that the festival comes back because it was a special event. It is. It was a very pretty magical event. It was. You went. You were there.
Yeah, and I know it also gets people like. Emily Drinker, they hold that one kind of contest for who can play the main stage. I just think that's amazing.
Well, yes, it is. Yeah.
So
yeah,
Right.
And Emily's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a good example because
Yeah.
she is definitely somebody who was there.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good experience. It was a lot of fun, and it was an exciting time. 2008 is when both Newport and Winnipeg turned over their buyers too. So I was sort of like, wow, look at me in the same company with these people, or being rich. It was not all about me, but like, you know, I was like really like, wow, this is a big step, and I'm excited for us to be growing in this way. You know, I feel like we did a good job for them, and I hope that they can do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Cool. I mean, that's just a great, you know, kind of example of, again, a fixture of a festival that goes for that many years and then forgets some tenets and principles.
I'm trying to really choose carefully, but
Sure.
there are people out there who have the ability to do a Jedi mind trick on people that, I mean, I've had it done to me. You know what I mean? Where you're like, I believe anything that you tell me. You know what I mean? And then you wind up sitting in a ditch, you know, and you know what I mean?
You just hope that's relegated to like when you're like 18 to 24 years old and you're just knuckleheads.
Yeah,
you don't need that to be
absolutely.
bad business decisions, especially for nonprofits.
Sure. Or romantic relationships.
Sure, exactly.
Which is not, I'm not putting those two things, that's not what happened, but you know what I'm saying.
Right. But no, I think that let's spin it positive.
Sure.
In that it's just yet another example of just, again, the gut feel you personally have for good acts to book, getting the room even for a festival,
right?
Because obviously you're booking different things for each of these different platforms, you know, whether that's based on audience or space or whatever, like all those factors play, budget, what you can charge for tickets, all that stuff. It's not an easy task.
No, but you know, it's just like anything else. I mean, you know, your head fills up with data over the years. And, you know, it used to be, Polestar magazine is one of the industry trade magazines, and in the back of the magazine, promoters used to be able to report how their shows did. You know, so whether you chose to report or not usually had more to do with whether your competitor was going to look at it and steal it from you than anything. But you could look and you could say, okay, artist X is doing great in DC, great in Boston. You know what I mean? Like, we need to pick that one off. Yeah, let's grab it.
Right.
We got to chase this. You know. And again, like, you know, you just years of looking at data, you know, and then all the shows you did. I mean, you know, again, we're still doing, I don't even know how many shows. It's insane, you know. So you start to learn, and it really does fill your brain up. And also, honestly, teaching it, like being able to explain over and over and over again to these students, kind of, you know, you reinforce for yourself the same principles that you're trying to put onto them. Right. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a learning experience. It's a learning experience. And you know, there are people who come into this world that know really one thing really well. You might be the EDM dude. You might be kicking ass with that. Right. But you're not going to book a folk festival.
No, right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And you got to be well-rounded enough. And that's part of what I love, again, just about working with a group of people.
Team,
there's people, I'm like, look, I'm not a metal. I mean, I haven't been a metal guy, as I like to say. I haven't been a metal guy since Metallica put out Garage Days, which was the last metal album I bought.
Which
in
I think I might be in the same book.
Yeah. You know, but like, you know, Graham, totally not. He's a metal guy. He's a math rock metal dude. You know, who also gets everything else.
Right.
He's learned very well. So yeah, fun gig. Gig.
Yeah, and I guess I, you know, so appreciate again, like the desire to try and take a risk.
Oh yeah.
To bring in a band that you think is worthy of the stage, and maybe one round too early.
Yeah.
But you'd rather take that shot. I mean, for me as a goer, a concert goer, a consumer of music, I'm always, that's like, you know, my favorite thing is that I've got all these bands saved on Bands in Town. Yeah. And when I see they're coming within, you know, 50 miles, I'm like, let's go.
Well, you know, a great example of that is Low Cut Connie. Adam had emailed me once I got to know Adam, and again, he's a Philly guy, so we have, you know, Hannah's a mutual friend. Hannah's on the cover of one of their records.
Right. Yeah. And Adam Weiner, the lead singer of Low Cut Connie.
He's kind of the guy. When we sort of got to know each other, all of a sudden I realized that he was Ladyfingers, which was his previous project. And I distinctly remember him sending me his, whatever it was, SoundCloud or whatever it was, because it was a rockabilly thing.
Right.
And I like rockabilly bands, you know, I played in that one and stuff. So I was like, you're the same guy? Like, no way. You know what I mean? Like, it's so exciting to see people come up like that, you know? But it is a risk. And, you know, a great example here is there's a woman named Bella White who's on Rounder Records, who is a bluegrass musician.
Sure.
I'll put that in quotes. An acoustic musician, and you know, signed a Rounder, good manager, good agent, like it's all there. But she wanted to tour right out of the pandemic, and September of 2021 was an iffy time to be on the road. And the show did not do very well, and I was like, well, maybe it won't happen for her. But the next time she came through, we didn't have the date available. I said, you know what? We'll do it at the Loft at City Winery.
Yeah.
You know? And we did really well.
Cool.
And it was like, whoa. Right. You know what I mean? And it was I think it was off cycle. It wasn't even a new album. So I'm like, okay, so everybody figured it out. You know what I mean? And now I know that Bella White is somebody that we're going to want to chase down, whether it be for Milk Boy or for one of the outdoor things this summer, for sure. You know, for sure. You just a little early, and the pandemic that didn't help at all.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, but again, thank you for lending that, and I really hope you can teach that to someone else, because it's an innate talent usually.
I know. It's just being there.
Hopefully, whatever, the universe attracts someone to you to kind of apprentice on that.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, again, like with Graham and Anna, I don't really know that they need my stewardship there. You know what I mean? Because I learn a lot from them as much as anything. But like, you know, it's whether people want it or not. You know, I mean, and I don't mean that like in their ego way. It's like, I mean, we don't all work in the same office. Right. You know what I mean? We work out of the office together once a week. And one of the things about my new senior status in the world is that, you know, I realize that not everybody wants to hear the stories. Like, that's what I got.
Right.
I got that and some CDs and T-shirts. You know what I mean? Don't you want to hear my stories?
That's why I was. That was the big reason why I was like, I just love the stories. Let's tell
lots
some
of good
stories.
Yeah. Lots of good stories. Well, eventually there'll be, you know, a book.
Nice.
That's not really true.
Okay.
I could write a book.
I was going to say,
a journalist
why not?
producer. Yeah, you know, it's funny because I see people put out books. I know a lot of people who have, you know, maybe independent published or something like that. Like the old school promoters put out books, and they're a lot of fun. Yeah. You know what I mean? Right. But like, I know a lot of people who have self-published any kind of book, not just music industry. Right. And I'm like, I don't know, man. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm, you know. But, you know, I mean, it's...
Well, if there's a publisher listening out there that you want to have this... Yeah.
That's right. Give me a call. I'll tell you some stories. They're almost all of the stories are about people who are pretty much dead now anyway.
We could chat for
another
hour, but we maybe we'll do a part 2 at some point.
I'm always happy to do that. Believe me, I'd love to hear myself talk. If you keep laughing, you're my best audience.
There you go. Jesse, thank you so much for coming on.
All right, Phil. Thanks, man. Absolutely.
Thank you. David.
Philip.
Jesse Lundy.
The man has seen a few shows.
Shows, experienced things, and just so knowledgeable, gregarious with his knowledge.
I always, every time he was telling one of those stories, and he even said a few times, like, I'm going to be smart with my word choices here. Like the off-record versions of some of these stories have got to be scandalous.
I'm sure. Yes. We did hear some of those, but did not include them in the edit. And yes, there's definitely the B-side version of these stories are great too. and also kudos, Jesse was in on the chat here listening in, and thank you for that. And yes, I knew you play sometimes Salvation in some of your sets, so I did put that in there on purpose. So, but what did we learn? There was a lot to learn in there.
We learned that booking a show sounds so easy. It sounds so easy. And
I thought it was one thing that I learned was unfortunate picker of band names. He kept getting cease and desist.
Well, maybe that's the name of the band at that point in time. Like we've come up, the name of the band is Cease and Desist.
Yeah, there you go.
Or Murphy, Ludgum, Smith, and Associates.
Yes.
Like we've just given it up, and we're just going to name it right after the law firm coming after us.
The lawyer, yeah, right off the billboard. I thought that was such a great story. But yeah, I just I was personally super intrigued about talent buying and what that was and what it entailed. And
yeah, I mean, I'm glad you asked the question just for clarity too of getting the idea. And that's one of the things that I think is worth digging into just from even a big picture kind of thing is the idea of what does talent buying, what are you buying? Like, what is that transaction really mean? And because buying talent, I'd sure like to be a better basketball player.
Sure.
And I wish I could just go buy a pair of shoes.
Maybe Jesse can help you with that.
Maybe. I mean, he probably knows Jordan. And but my point being is that's the kind of thing it was good to get sort of a industry insider's point of view on how that is manifested for the actual work of how the band gets booked to where you see them play.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why you might see them play where you don't think you should see them play.
Correct. And what is possible and what's probably not possible. Like just a lot of stuff that people, I think, like I love the part when he was like, you can't just take it over because you like music.
You're right.
The sharks are going to smell blood in the water. And
that's the catch of like the hobby versus the the work side of things.
And and with that, it's like, it's just that little bit of inside baseball. That's not those people are not taking advantage of it. They're doing their job well. They sense an opportunity. They're taking care of their client.
Right. That's their bread and butter too, because they're paid probably on a percentage of that.
Exactly. So, thought that was awesome. I hope we have more opportunities to talk with Jesse, maybe even like as things come up as a trusted resource with, hey, not sure what this is, so let's go talk to Jesse. We could have almost like a segment on the show.
The Jesse did it meet the Jesse seal of approval?
Yes, right. Let's go.
I feel like there's a version of the show with him. You could watch an alternative version where it's like Mystery Science Theater 3000, and he sits across the bottom of the screen and has a lot of like more insights as you're like watching the thing unfold in front of you.
All right, Phil, let's say goodbye to everybody.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Your Next Favorite Band. We'd like to sincerely thank Jesse Lundy of Rising Sun Presents for, like we just were saying, all those amazing stories, all the knowledge of historical Philly concert scene, the different ways the different venues had interacted, as well as some of the just logistical talent buying and, how bands get booked. All that was wonderful stuff. There'll be tons of links in the show notes to Rising Sun Presents, as well as some of the different elements of what we were chatting about here. In particular, those different summer concert series that they have out there. Many of them are free, so I would keep an eye out for some of those, especially that Eagle View one. If you're anywhere within driving distance of that, it's incredible artists, and like he said, they're about 2 years away from making it huge. And that's been proven. So it's definitely one to keep tabs on, and you'll probably see us there. As always, our hope here is to bring you your next favorite band, your next favorite talent buyer. If you tuned in tonight because you knew Jesse Lundy and you wanted to hear his amazing stories, thank you so much for doing that. We hope that you might like and subscribe and follow based on what you heard, so that you can catch next episodes, so that we can bring you your next favorite band in future streams and podcast episodes. Or you can visit nextfaveband.com so that maybe your next favorite band is already out there from a previous episode. Stay tuned here while we play you something from Carly Commando. Hope to see you at Listen to the Dissonance on February 4th in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is the part of the turn where we, bring it down and make things sad, but I feel like this path has been real Debbie Downer. We're like the devil. The sex worker's dying. Murder train. Yeah. So we're gonna keep that train going. This is a song that this is a song that I love that my mom hates, and for good reason. It's a sad song, and to be fair, maybe Music Fest isn't like the greatest place to like really bring things down for people, but you know what? I'm an artist. I do what the fuck I want, so that's what happens. I feel like in music, there's like the time to dance and be happy, and there's also the sad songs, and I feel like I totally understand that my mom is like super sensitive to the sad songs, and that there's people like that like just can't handle sad music sometimes. But also there's people like me that need the sad songs to know that I'm not alone. And sometimes when you're dealing with some really intense situations, it's those sad songs that get you through. Like my whole college years were sad music. Like there's a whole scene in Clueless where Cher's like mad that her stepbrother Paul Rudd is listening to like Radiohead, and she's like, wow, I know college boys listen to like this cranky. It's because we're sad, okay? College students can be sad. We're growing up. So also an interesting point I would like to add before I play the song is that because of the beautiful connection of music and connecting with people lyrically and melodically through the power of song, I will be going to grad school to become a therapist because I want to keep connecting with people. So if there's a guarantor in the audience, I have a Venmo QR code for you. My credit is at least $700 and I need 60 of them. So if you want to support your girl, you know where to do it. Thank you. This song is I mean, it's a sad song, but I love it very much because I get to sing about people that I love and lost, and I get to honor them, and I also get to relate to other people. I'm sure there's some in this room that go on living every day where you are completely falling apart in the inside and everything else just seems completely normal around you, and it seems super, super fucked up that the sun is shining and the sky is blue and like everything that you know is completely crumbling in the inside. I know what that's like, and it sucks. And so if you're experiencing that or if you've been there, I get it. And as we get older, like the things that kind of qualify what is a good day, what's a good year, they're changing. And sometimes it's just as simple as, okay, my friends and my family are alive today. That's good enough for me. So that is the context of the song.